Hi everyone, Bob Getty here. It's been my go-to restaurant for the past 15 years. Movie Star Restaurant in Oak Grove. Southern comfort food. Fried chicken, peas and cornbread, squash, homemade mashed potatoes, fried chicken, salads, desserts. Southern comfort buffets. Monday through Friday, 11 till 2. Friday nights, 5 till 8. And of course the after church Sunday buffet, 11 a.m. till 2 p.m. Movie Star has been serving the Pine Belt for over 25 years. In my 15 years, I've never had a bad experience. Not one. And I don't think you will either. Movie Star Restaurant in Oak Grove. Proud to have my friends at Movie Star as one of the sponsors of Legends.
At Jewel Masters, selling your gold, silver, or coins is simple, secure, and very rewarding. Our certified expert will evaluate your jewelry with complete transparency, offering top dollar payouts on the spot. Whether it's old, broken, or simply no longer your style, your gold and silver is worth more at Jewel Masters. Honest service, immediate payment, real value. Bring your gold, silver, or coins to Jewel Masters today, across from Academy on Highway 98 West.
Welcome to Legends with Bob Getty, where we explore personal and professional lives of Mississippi's greatest sports legends. Broadcasting from the Anatomies Podcast Studio in Hattiesburg, here's Bob and today's guest.
All right, everybody, welcome back to another edition of Legends. And throughout the months that we've started this program, we've had a lot of legendary people on the show, but none more so than today. My guest today is General Jeff Hammond, Director of Veteran and Military Affairs at Southern Miss, former athletic director at Southern Miss, former quarterback and team captain at Southern Miss, former commanding general of the 4th Infantry Division and commander of U.S. forces in Baghdad, Iraq, where he led 28,000 troops and a 3-time combat tour veteran. General, to say that it's an honor to have you on the show would be an understatement. Thank you very much for coming on.
Thank you, Bob. It's my honor to be a part of your show. Thank you. And my best wishes to all your listeners.
Well, thank you, sir. All right, we all know you as a USM man, but your life began in another part of the country. Tell us about your upbringing and what led you to Southern Miss.
Yeah, I was born in California, in Whittier, California. That's in Los Angeles. My father was a traveling salesman, so we went where the job was. We lived in a variety of places until eventually we ended up in Memphis, Tennessee in my high school years, where I played football, played baseball. I did okay, high school football as a quarterback, and had some scholarship opportunities, but my dream was to play baseball. I loved baseball, and as blessing would have it, Ole Miss recruited me. Coach Jake Gibbs and Larry Williams, his lead recruiter, and offered me the opportunity to come play at Ole Miss. So that's where I was sort of headed until right before graduation, in the middle of the state city playoff, I got injured, hurt my knee playing baseball. Ole Miss backed away and said, let's wait and see how this knee comes along. I would like you to play Legion ball. And so I had everything and lost it all. I had nothing. I had no options at that point for college. We weren't in a position financially, my family, for me to go to college. And as a blessing would have it, I got a call from my mother the day after the injury when I was at school on crutches. He said, come on home. We have some coaches here from the University of Southern Mississippi. The USM coaching staff was in town in Memphis to scout Memphis State's spring football game as we opened with them in the upcoming fall season at that time. So I came home. Coaching staff was there. They offered me a scholarship. I said, what about my knee? They said, we'll take a chance on it. Just sign it. Let's go. And so that's kind of how it happened. So but behind all that, what really happened was God had his hands on my shoulders. He said, I'm going to guide you where it is you need to go, because once you get there at USM, all goodness is going to come from that for the rest of your life, which is exactly what happened.
Bobby Collins was the coach?
Bobby Collins was a coach. I loved Coach Collins. One of the sad days of my life was when he passed away. In fact, when I was selected to be a general officer in the United States Army, he was the first person I called. We were in the Pentagon at the time. I think I called him about 10 o'clock at night and said, Coach, I just want to thank you, you and Whitey Jordan and your coaching staff. taught me a street PhD in leadership there in my years with you playing football. And I loved Coach Collins, and I loved the staff that we had back there, each and every one of them.
You referred to them before we started recording as great men in your lives.
Yeah. I'm a student. I'm always a student of my favorite subject, which is leadership and heartship. Call it leadership and heartship. They got to go together. It's got to be from the heart. And I've always made a point to try to gravitate to certain men in particular and learn from them. Bobby was one of them. Whitey Jordan. I don't know if that's a name many recall, but I'll tell you a quick Whitey Jordan story. The day I was promoted to 2-star, I was in the Pentagon. And at the ceremony, there was the collection of 3 and 4 stars in the Army were in town for a meeting, so they all came to the ceremony. And I was in the back waiting for it to start, but they couldn't start the ceremony. In fact, the Chief Staff of the Army came back and said, let's just delay this for a while. We're having too much fun out here. Your coach friend, Whitey Jordan and his wife had come in for the promotion, so he's telling us football stories. He said, this is the best thing we've done all week. Don't worry about the promotion. We want to hear more from your coach. So, and I've stayed close with Coach Jordan through the years. But men like that, I've got a guy named Ambrose Zawinski, who was professor of military science when I was at Southern Mississippi. He was another one of the men that taught me how to be a man. All that led by my father and then my older brother as well, men who I was smart enough to listen to.
General, you came to Southern Miss and played quarterback at a time that I think it's fair to say the program began to get on the national map.
Yes.
Bobby Collins, obviously very instrumental in doing that. How quickly did the success come to you as the quarterback of the Southern Miss football team?
The first 2 years, I was a scout team quarterback with no hope of probably ever playing. I wasn't very good, but I worked hard. And my job was to be the best scout team quarterback, and I worked hard, real hard. My third year, I was buried on the depth chart as a quarterback. We lost 9 straight games. After about the 6th loss, I went to see Coach Collins. I said, I want to make a difference. He said, well, you're not going to play quarterback right now. I said, make me the wedge man on the football team. So I became the wedge man on the football team.
On the kickoff.
For kickoff returns, and knocked a few people out along the way. The teammates loved it, but I felt that I wanted to help this football team win. And after the 9th loss, we were getting ready to play Memphis State. They were headed to a bowl game at home, and they named me the starter. And the only thing I could say to Coach Collins before the game was, do I get to be the wedge man as well? And we won those last 2 games. We beat Memphis and we won, and then I think the following season's the year we went up immediately against Florida State, Auburn, Ole Miss State, and we just rolled through that. And I think if you look back, that might have been the real start of the lead into the, if I will, the Reggie Collier era.
Right.
But the starting of the momentum came that year, and when we went down to Ole Miss, and the week before they had beaten Notre Dame, and the week before we had defeated Auburn, and we beat them in Oxford. So, and we really thought we were good. And I don't know if we were. It's not that we were very good, but we just played tough, heartfelt football. But that was the start, I believe.
So you were quarterbacking during the Eagle Fever
Yes.
era, which was, I still have an Eagle Fever poster framed in my house. Young people look at you like you're crazy when you say that, but General, describe how magical that was back then.
The stadium was crazy. People did not want to come into M.M. Roberts and play us. I describe it this way. If you go to a USM baseball game, it's a packed house, a lot of emotion. Everyone's in. That was Eagle Fever.
Correct.
For football
that's
back
exactly
during
correct.
the late 70s. It was the exact same thing. When we came the year, my junior year, 77, we defeated Ole Miss. By the time the bus ride made it back, we couldn't get on campus. We had to fight our way to our dorm because there's thousands of people.
Mm-hmm.
So that was, I think the best description is what baseball is today is what football for us was back during the Eagle Fever era.
Your greatest memories of your time as the quarterback here are what?
I think it was Probably when we defeated Ole Miss up in Oxford. Coming out of the Auburn game, I had separated my shoulder, but I played. Going in the Ole Miss game, I was still hurt. We weren't expected to win. We went into the locker room losing by a couple of touchdowns at halftime. A few of us got together and asked the coaching staff to leave. They closed the doors, and we had a heart-to-heart physical interaction, as only a group of football players can do, and we decided that we're going to go win this football game. And it's funny, when we came out of the locker room, normally second half, you run to the sideline. We walked. And Whitey Jordan came up to me and says, "What's going on? What's going on?" I said, "You don't got to worry. This game's in the bag." and we methodically scored a touchdown, turnover, and we won. So my memory was probably that game. It's one of the few times in my life I've seen some remarkable men all come together, perfect timing to deliver something very special.
And again, it's hard to describe the pride the fan base had in those football teams, in it, General?
It was everyone was in the whole community back then. Mm-hmm. Everyone was in, and I believe that there's a large number of kids back then that were first-generation college kids, and they all came to Southern, and local kids, and they decided to make Southern Miss their home. And the whole community embraced our program back then. It was we still talk about after the home games going down Fraternity Row, and you couldn't get through because it was wall-to-wall people having a good time. I'd like to see us get those days back.
Yeah. I should have asked you when you brought it up, did they let you stay on the wedge when you started the quarterback job?
Coach Collins said I've been hitting the head too many times, so no, sir. I only got to play quarterback.
All right, here's an interesting stat I pulled up from your career. You can correct me now if my information is wrong. You had 116 passing attempts as a quarterback, 186 rushing attempps. It was a rushing first football team, right?
Yeah, well, I couldn't throw the ball or the hoot, number one. I mean, I couldn't, and I really didn't run very well. I think today they would call a game manager. I was a very good game manager. I thought the skill I had was leadership, the ability to get the guys to decide to go down the field and score without excuse, no mistakes. But my roommate, best friend, Dane McDaniel, he was a much better quarterback, times 2 or 3. So I was excited when I graduated to see him really take charge. But no, I wasn't talent. Physical talent wasn't my strength. It was, I think, leadership.
When you graduated from Southern Miss, of course, you were commissioned into the military. What, if anything, did you learn from your years of playing football for Bobby Collins that helped you succeed when you joined the military?
That's a great question. Foremost was treat everyone with dignity and respect. Bobby Collins did that. I can't ever recall him laying into a teammate or a player or coach publicly or anything else. Treat everyone with dignity and respect and expect the best of everyone. So I was armed in my left and right with that when I went in the Army, and I treated these soldiers and their families the way they wanted to be treated, and I expected them to be the best. You know, it's funny what happens for soldiers. It's funny what happens to a soldier who someone labeled as a bad soldier, and all of a sudden you treat him with great expectation. They'll rise to that expectation. They'll typically rise to it. So those are 2 lessons I think that I really was able to, and probably foremost the 2 4-letter words: hard work, hard work, hard work, hard work.
Don't you think football teaches people that maybe not go to the military after football, but it does teach a lot of life lessons, doesn't it?
Wonderful, splendid life lessons. Hard work, teamwork, sacrifice.
That things are not always going to go your way?
Absolutely. Well, most of my friends, when I came to Southern Miss on a football scholarship, that were stuck down on a scout team for 2 years left at the – well, I didn't. I'm going to persevere. I'm going to stay with it. Football is a wonderful classroom for preparing a young man for what's best out there in the future in the world. And I think to this day it continues to be that classroom.
You know, you said you loved baseball. I've had Scott Berry I've had Christian Ostrander, other baseball coaches tell me their first preference when picking players is to get a young man who played football and baseball in high school because they say football teaches toughness that translates to baseball. Would you agree with that?
Yes, I would totally agree with that. In fact, as a commanding officer through my years in the Army, when I would take a command, I'd ask a lot of questions about the officers I had inherited leaders and as leaders. And one of the things I always wanted to know is what's their athletic background? Did they play sports? Did they? I'd get a kid from West Point that played. I remember he's a tight end at West Point. Well, guess what? Everything he played about playing tight end at West Point manifested himself as a leader. So yeah, I think it was General Eisenhower in his book At Ease. Friends, I Tell My Stories goes into paraphrasing. He says, at times I was out to look for great leaders, and I oftentimes drifted back to searching for former football players. For those men, you're usually embedded with these very qualities that were key and necessary to lead soldiers.
Mm-hmm. Your military career obviously took you away from Southern Miss for some
Sure.
extended period of time, and you achieved greatness in the military that I fair to say, I don't know the percentage, but there are very few people that make general that go into the military. I would assume I'm right about that. Talk, if you will, a little bit about your career when it started in the military and how that advancement and development took place.
Well, when I graduated from the officers basic course, they had a general 2-star as a guest speaker at graduation. He put a picture up which showed it was a pyramid diagram. One guy at the top all the way down to the base. There was probably about a couple thousand. And he said only one person in this group will achieve the rank of general officer. And that just kind of passed through one ear to the other. But most important to me, I never served from day to day, job to job, unit to unit for the idea of getting promoted. I never did it for promotion. I did it for the love of the game. I loved soldiers. I loved doing what we were doing. When I was selected my first to grade a major, I didn't even know I'd been promoted. All my peers were going and to find their name, and I didn't even know I was eligible. My wife and I firmly believe that the success I had in the military was because I did it for serving the people, and I wasn't looking to get promoted. I didn't care. I mean, had I retired and I left her, it wasn't. And I will tell you this: when I was selected to be a brigadier general, there were certainly a couple hundred guys who were a heck of more qualified than me. So it's a very humbling experience. But for me, service was a day-to-day for the mission, for the people, and not for me.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever happened to me was a byproduct of the people's willingness to help me be successful.
Mm-hmm. I got to tell you this: when my son was in the military, and you certainly know more about it than me, I don't think sometimes that people who have no connection with the military understand what a sacrifice the family of military people make. It's tough, isn't it?
We moved 17 times in 32 years. My two children attended high school, a British school. This is in the span of 3 years. A British school, a school in the Netherlands, and then a school in the United States. In the span of 3 years, 3 different high schools, if you would. It's tough on the family. It's very hard on the family. And I think of the many combat deployments I had. My firstborn Michael was born the day I deployed to go to war the first time, and he was very sick. We didn't know if he'd make it. And I left my wife back home with my niece and nephew. She was raising them and a little boy, and we were told that we were going to be combat ineffective within the first 48 hours. We weren't coming home. They cleared out the hospital at Fort Stewart, and off we went, not thinking we were going to come home alive. What did that mean? It meant my wife sat there at night, glued to CNN, Fox News, whatever, waiting to see if something bad happened and wondering if I was there.
Mm-hmm.
Service for families is twice as hard as the actual work that the service member puts in, because I got to do what I loved to do. The byproduct of was, here's an example. When I came home from Baghdad, command the 4th Infantry Division at Fort Hood, Texas, I had the big house that overlooked the housing areas, all these homes. So I was the commanding general. And I had been home one day, and it was in March. I went out the front door at about 7 that morning. I'm looking around, and I count 11 moving vans out there. I turned to my wife, and Army families don't move in May. They move in the summers to keep the kids in school on cycle. I turned to my wife and said, "What the heck's this? What's going on?" And she said, "Those are your widows. Those are your widows." So, yeah, it's a tough life. It's a rewarding life. It's every bit worth it. But there's a huge cost. I had 94 soldiers killed in action my last combat tour, the 4th Infantry, and well over 300 wounded. So it's a cost that it's never satisfied.
I think I know the answer to this question before I ask it, but could you have had the success you had in the military without your wife?
No, my wife, she's the best person I know. She saved me from myself. She always was there for me. It's okay, I'll share a story. 9/11. We all kind of remember when we were on 9/11. I was in the Pentagon. That morning, my boss, I was a colonel. My 3-star was out on vacation, and the 4-star ran the Army. General Eric Shinseki was out of the country. And so it's going to be a great day. Bosses aren't around, and get to go home, enjoy life. And that's when Twin Towers were struck. And one of my guys turned to me and said, "Sir, do you think the Pentagon could ever get attacked?" I said, "No, of course not. It'd be an act of war." And the phone rings, and it's General Shinseki, and he says, "I need an update. What's going on?" So I told him I would get an update, but I'd give me a few minutes. I have to go to the basement of the Pentagon, our operations center, so I can communicate with them through secure, secret means. And I told my staff, "You just continue to work up here." And as I stepped out my office, it all ended. That's when the plane hit. Corkscrewed up, killed my people. I didn't know what had happened. All I know is smoke, screaming. But I knew how to get my hand to the door and go to the basement of the Pentagon. And one of the things, General Jack Keane, you see him on Fox now and then, he's down there in the Ops Center. He said, "The phones are still working. Call your wives and tell them goodbye," because it all collapsed on top of us. It's filling up with smoke. And I called my wife. She's crying. Her sister had just called her and said something happened at the Pentagon. And I said, "Baby, I'm always going to love you. I have to go." And I say, if you need to go to bed at night, think about what are you going to do if you have 30 seconds to say goodbye? And who are you going to say goodbye to, and what are you going to say? And you better not wait.
Mm-hmm.
But to run it forward, later that night, D.C. was shut down. I walked down to George W. Parkway to meet my wife. She drove as far as she could to give me some clothes and some food. And I said, "Baby, everything's changing. You're not going to see much of me." She looked at me. She said, "It's your time to do your duty to your country. I have the kids. Do your duty." And you have no idea the effect that had on me. The release that gave me to get after it and do my job. That's the caliber woman I married. She
So
supported me.
clearly that sort of support is just priceless.
It's uncanny. It's hard to find. And I've asked her, I went to war going out of Germany. I deployed with the 1st Cav out of Germany and left her with 2 kids and dogs and everything else to move all the way back home by herself. Things like that. So, no, we're all of us in the military are blessed with our partners because they sacrifice equally, if not more, than us.
General, when that day occurred, did you have any inclination that you would go on to command the forces in Baghdad?
No, the big question I had was survivor's guilt. Why am I alive? I should have died as my staff. Why am I alive? And I later realized God had other plans for me, and what that was to command the 4th Infantry.
Mm-hmm.
I felt that, and this day I'm certain of it, that God had other plans for me. My time wasn't then, and ultimately I got to command the 4th. And
How many of your staff were killed that day on 9/11?
well, it was a small staff that was in the room at the time. There's 3 people. We were with what they call the Army Operations Division, the G3, and the wonderful people, incredible people. They didn't deserve that. They weren't in it for that. And one of the hard things I had to do that night, I called their families. Now, the Army has a notification system, and you don't mess with that, but I had to call their families. And all I could say was, if she or he walks through your door tonight, please let me know. But I was right there, and they're not going to come.
How hard was that day for you, General Hammond?
It was surreal, Bob. It didn't seem real. I'd been to combat before, but in Washington D.C. For that, it just didn't seem. It seemed like a complete fog. It's so hard to describe. You step outside the Pentagon, and the Reagan Airport is completely shut down, and all you can hear above you is the sound of F-16s protecting the nation's capital. You look out in the courtyard of the Pentagon, bodies laying out. It was still on fire. It's still burning off the jet fuel. It didn't seem real. To this day, I sometimes can't quite figure it all out. The last place we would think in our homeland that someone would attack us. But they did, and you saw the response. The people in the United States came together, and we hunted them down. But that was hard. And to this day, it's hard to think about sometimes. But there are some heroic people. There's some incredible people in the Pentagon that were heroic. Saving lives, helping people, and it was very warming to see the nation step up, and we went and did our job.
To obviously a much lesser degree than what you experienced, but I think what I remember more than anything is the feeling of just astonishment that our country, our homeland, had been attacked.
Yeah, isn't that the last place you would think such would ever occur? And particularly, of all places, in the Pentagon. No, about, I guess, the 2 mornings later, once the senior leadership, Department of Defense, all returned, I got to sit on a meeting where they were talking about who did this, and we're looking at U2 photographs that had been shot the night before, and they're talking about Al Qaeda. And the thing that surprised me looking around, who's Al Qaeda? Who are these guys? To get attacked by an enemy that you really don't, where'd you come from, sort of thing. So that was. I think we've caught up a lot since then. Hopefully our security systems, our intelligence collection, sharing systems are much more improved. They appear to be, but we learned a lot about ourselves. I think the biggest lesson we learned as a nation that you poke the bear with a stick, the bear is going to come after you. Doesn't matter what our internal problems are. You poke us hard enough, we're going to forget all that for a moment, and we're going to come get you.
As the Japanese learned.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah.
How long after 9/11 was it that you took command of the 4th Infantry, General Hammond?
Well, right after 9/11, soon thereafter, I was selected for Brigadier General, and I went to war with the 1st Cavalry Division as the assistant division commander. So that was probably a year, maybe a little more than a year after. I initially went to work for the British Army, and then I was deployed from the British Army assignment direct to the 1st Cav. And then after that, I came back and went back to the Pentagon, and I ran current operations for the Army. And then, as part of the surge operations, I was given command of 4th Infantry, returned back to Fort Hood. Most of our career as a family was spent at Fort Hood, Texas.
Biggest responsibility of your life, leading those men?
Yeah, most sacred. The most sacred responsibility, not just to men, but their families. Whenever I write or type the word families, no matter where it's at in a sentence, is a capital F to drive home a point. So, yeah, the most sacred responsibility, one that both me and my wife took most seriously, took to heart, and did everything we could to make sure that those around us understood it was a privilege. Privilege, not a right, but an absolute privilege to be able to lead soldiers and their families.
28,000 men, am I right about that?
Yes, sir. 28,000 men and probably 100,000 family members back at Fort Hood.
Mm-hmm. All right, talk just, if you will, a minute or two about that, about that experience. What do you remember most from that, General?
From Fort Hood years? Or?
Well, from when you were the commander of the 4th Infantry and U.S. forces in Baghdad.
Wow. It was a tough fight. We had averaged about 33 attacks a day. Like I said, 94 soldiers killed, 93 men, and one little Jessica, one of our female soldiers, was killed. I remember the constant thud in my heart when we'd have soldiers killed. I'd have to pick up the phone and call my wife. She's the first one I'd call back at Fort Hood, and I'd say, prepare to copy. Here's the names. And she'd go into action. She would trigger the system where the notification and the memorial service, the funerals and all that. That was really hard. But the thing about, we were over there, most deployments into Iraq were 12 months for Army, 6 months for Marines. The 4th Division, I think, did 14 months. So every one of my soldiers missed 2 Christmases, 2 birthdays, 2 Thanksgiving. It was very hard to keep them motivated in that environment. When you're getting hurt, you're losing your brothers and sisters, and it's a grind. People don't understand in that combat environment over there in Iraq, you eat, you sleep, and you fight. You eat, you sleep, and you fight. That's what you do. And you don't get a lot of sleep. You don't get a lot of eating, and you spend most of the time, if you're not fighting, you mentally, as you're trying to rest, your body's on alert. But we accomplished our mission. We did. We brought from 33 attacks a day average down to 0. We helped them. We held the first ever national elections without a single violent act. We killed, captured well over 1,000 key operatives. We broke the backs of many networks. We brought a lot of stability and kind of brought it down and give Baghdad a chance, to give the country a chance, building its police force and security to try to move ahead. And it's been pretty, I look back and say, we did our job there. It was hard. When I came home, I'd probably down about 186 from about 206. As I got off the plane, my wife was there to greet me, and I'm feeling sorry for myself. All this, and I look at her, and she's about 86 pounds. Mm-hmm. She's lost, and I realized a strain back home. But I was surrounded by great men and women, patriots who served this country. I was surrounded by men and women I talk to this day that were incredible warriors. I was fortunate. 3 separate occasions, one particular guy kept me alive from getting killed, saved my life. And I worked for some great generals, David Petraeus, Lloyd Austin, Ray Ordierno. They were my bosses over there, and they were absolutely the best general officership you could ever hope at any time in the history of this country. And by and large, I think we accomplished our mission. However, the loss was horrific when you lose soldiers. It's horrific. It never leaves.
How much of a toll did it take on you, General?
Coming out of that, quite honestly, Bob, I sort of lost a fire in my belly. I came home and my wife and I faced decision time. Do I continue in the Army, take another promotion, take another hard job in the Pentagon? What do we do? And the circumstances of the time at that moment were such that it was time to go. You know, if you lead soldiers and families, the minute you lose the fire in your belly, you got to go. They deserve everything. And my wife and I did a lot of prayer, a lot of contemplation. The circumstances of the time facing us, the next assignment, other possibilities. I remember telling her, I said, "It's time. It's time."
And that's when Southern Miss came back in your life?
Yeah, it
is
did.
that right?
It did. When the word got that I was retiring from the Army, I had some general officer friends offer us some job opportunities, pretty lucrative, in the D.C. area. I just told Diane, I just want to go home. I said, we're beat. We got to go home. We got to get around those that love us and just kind of get our feet on the ground. And I was given the opportunity to work for USM Athletics. And so we came back to Hattiesburg. She's from Hattiesburg, so it was her home. Her family's here. And we never looked back.
You came back in a capacity as a senior athletic director. Is that not correct?
Yeah.
For fundraising.
Fundraising. I came back initially to raise money. Yeah. And, that we did.
How did it feel to be back in Hattiesburg after what you had been through?
It was like landing on a nice soft landing. After 32 years of rough landings, and it was predictable. We were around family, we were around friends, we were around the environment that meant so much to us. It was very warming, the reception, and rekindled the friendships that we had been away from so long. So it was a nice soft landing.
Did it help you heal, General?
Yes, it did. Yeah, it took a little while because there's a transition. When you do 32 years in the Army, you can't turn that off and all of a sudden enter into the civilian sector workforce. And I had some rough edges that had to be smoothed out. I wasn't in the Army anymore. You know, first few days, first week or so on the job at Southern, I show up every day at 5 a.m. No one's around. You know, everyone goes home at 5, and I'm saying, why are they going home this early? I mean, you know, the athletic director wanted something done. Well, he wanted it done. It doesn't mean it takes a week. Let's get it done. You know, mission focused sort of thing, and that wasn't the way things operate outside the military. Military is a mission focused, task condition standard environment, and so I had to change and I had to transition.
So you eventually became the athletic director. You became the head guy. Talk about how that occurred.
Well, you know, Richard Giannini, I won't go into circumstance or whatever happened, but he retired, and Martha Saunders, the president, at the time called me in and said, I'd like you to be the acting athletic director. And I said, no. I said, I don't want to be in charge of large organizations anymore. I said, that's not. She said, well, then you're probably going to have to go too. I said, okay, all right. I said, let's do it. And so, yeah, I took the position upon Richard's departure and did that for about a year, a little more than a year, and then moved on to do something else.
I'm going to repeat to you what I said to you before we started recording this. My son was in the military then, big Southern Miss kid. He calls me when he finds out that you've been given the job, and he says, well, Dad, I'm going to tell you two things. General Hammond led combat troops into the Battle of Fallujah. There isn't a damn thing at Southern Miss that will be a challenge to him. But my concern is he was a general in the Army. He expects people to do things when they need to be done, the way they need to be done. He sort of recited military life to me, and he said, I don't know how academics are going to take that.
You know, Well said by your son. Kudos. Good assessment. I it was a difficult transition. You know, not so much the hard work, the high expectation, everyone do, but integrity and honesty, your words, your bonds, sort of thing. And in the Army, the most important weapon system, and this is very important, the most important weapon system in the Army is the soldier, the soldier, the soldier. And that's how I lived for 32 years. And as I entered into the community here, particularly in athletics, for me, the most important element was the average fan. The average, not the influencers, not those that give the
I
most
could not
money.
agree with you more.
Well, those at the time who gave the most money had influence, but for me, it was the average fan. The average fan is the foundation of how we do this, and that rubbed people the wrong way. I think some people, because I cut off a lot of the what I considered to be unnecessary influencers. I cut off. I held systems and peoples and programs accountable, and I fully made all my effort to look out for the financial well-being of the department, and we did pretty good with the financial. We were able to balance the budget and make that stuff work. But I also know my personality and my way of doing business, it ruffled some feathers without question.
You just hit a nerve with me, General.
Okay.
I completely agree with what you said, and I've always wondered that. Why is more attention not paid to the average guy who works 40 or 50 hours a week, sacrifices to buy 4 tickets to a football game and bring his wife and 2 children, walks across empty parking lot after empty parking lot because he has to park 2 miles from the stadium, and it seems like no one pays attention to that guy, which is the backbone of your program.
That is who we are. See, that's somehow, maybe that's been lost in translation over time, but that's who the University of Southern Mississippi is. We are commoners who know what hard work and sacrifice is all about. We don't ask for much. And that's, to me, is a grapevine that everything grows from. That's how I viewed it as my time as athletic director. I got one of the away football games. Typically, some alumni would travel with the team who were helping it, making financial donations, key donations, things like that. Well, when I became the athletic director, the guys I'd take with me on the team were a bunch of just average basic ticket guys who were out there trying to help the program just because I caught flack for that. But, looking back, I understand the dynamic. Athletics is it's a business. And it lives or dies. Despite what we say about student athletes, it lives or dies on whether you make money or lose money. And it's a tough business. But our heart, my wife, we've always been with the common soldier, and here it's always been with the commoner who we are. That's where we come from.
What did you find the most difficult thing about the job?
I didn't think the job was hard. I'll try to answer that question. I didn't think it was hard. I thought it was just probably the most difficult was to get. Here it is. The most difficult was to understand the nature of the environment of people. You can make decision A, but this guy, and that guy won't like it, and then they jump in. There's so many moving pieces out there. Where in the Army, you can give an order. We're going to do this, follow me, let's go. But in athletics, you've got to build consensus-based leadership decisions, leading decisions. It has to be consensus. You got to get buy-in, get the right people massage, get all buy-in before you're able to successfully move forward. You can rattle some, I'll give a cage I rattle in a big way. When I became the athletic director, we were in debt, seriously in debt. And heck, I'm not an athletic director. I'm an Army general officer. but I can make decisions and I can analyze and study things. And I've had experience with money. And I realize that we're scheduled to play the University of Nebraska in Hattiesburg this upcoming season and pay them whatever that amount was to come. And I started to do my homework, and I realized that we could move that game back to Nebraska if they'd be willing to pay us a big, big major payday. So I called their athletic director at the time, a guy named Tom Osborne, and I said, I'd like to sell you back the game. He says, you crazy? I said, no, here's the deal, and here's what I want for it. He says, that's ridiculous. I said, well, I'm making that offer, and the offer's off the table by the end of the day. Next morning, I had a fax for a contract. I won't get into how much money it was for, but a significant contract, one of the large contracts at the time to go play Nebraska. So I've taken away a Nebraska home game. I've got everyone upset over here. But then I also realize I'm still short money to balance the budgets. That's when I called Arkansas. You got an open date? I got an open date. Let's play each other. Your backyard for this amount of money. Boom, we did that. So we balanced the budget, but because I lacked the savvy to bring the consent and build it, I created enemies as well. Probably warranted as well. No one wanted to not see Nebraska and Hattiesburg, but at the time, my focus was on getting the department solvent financially.
This may be an odd question, but after what you had done in the military, you literally had life and death in your hands. I mean, that was your responsibility. You were responsible for 28,000 American soldiers. Did the battles here seem insignificant to you, for lack of a better term? Ever? Did that ever?
Yeah, they were, one thing you get with soldiers, you get loyalties. You get everyone rowing on the same stroke on a boat. The frustration was entering into the world of athletics. People have some have questionable loyalties with agendas, and they're not always hitting together at the same time. When I was over in athletics, you had an incredible staff there. And to this day, most of them are still there, and they work long. They work hard, and they don't get paid much, but they're loyal, hardworking, and dedicated. So it's a different dynamic.
Describe the experience now that you look back on it.
I'm glad I went through it. I wouldn't do it again. I mean,
They couldn't interest you in the job again, huh?
no, I mean, I had a perceived notion, an enchanting notion of athletics. Having played college football, it was a wonderful world. And once you get into it, you see it. It's not a pretty world. It's not something that a lot of it ran counter to my beliefs and the way I did things. So it's not a pretty. Look at it today with this NIL and everything else. And so I don't think I would. I learned from it. I'm glad I did it because it's just another tool in my kit bag. I made a lot of mistakes. I learned along the way. But looking back, it was taxing. My wife and I treated athletics like the Army. By that, I mean, we thought we had to be everywhere to show people that we were engaged. If Southern Miss was playing baseball and softball, she'd go to the softball game, I'd go to the baseball game, and we'd swap it half the game. But during the football games, I was athletic director. I would sit in a dozen different spots throughout the game, all over the state, just to hear people, hear what's going on. Exhausting. As Jeremy McClain, people don't realize the work he puts in. Or any of these athletic directors. It's a tough world, tough business.
Yeah, they work a lot of hours. There's
They
no
do.
question
They
about
do.
that. But that led to where you're at now.
Yeah.
Which is the Director of Veteran and Military Affairs at Southern Miss. And I know that's your wheelhouse, isn't it, General?
I was given the opportunity by Rodney Bennett to start the program. I don't think he ever thought we'd be successful as we are, but he didn't know me well enough. We went from nothing to high ranked number one in the country at one point, number 3 now, number 1 for family spouses. We have a beautiful center, Joe Quinlan, Hall of Honor Center. We provide a service that's unmatched anywhere across most of the nation, and it's a joy to serve these kids, service members, particularly the Mississippi National Guard guys. I actually adore dealing with the Mississippi National Guard. I don't think the state of Mississippi has a real great appreciation for what they have. They have the best National Guard formation in the nation. The 155th Brigade is unmatched. But we love what we do. I can't wait to do it every day. And the kids we get to serve, I mean, these are kids that are special.
What overall is the mission of this department?
I think our program, the mission of this program, and we call ourselves the Center for Military Veterans, Service Members, and Families. And our mission is to create the conditions so that these youngsters, upon entering our university, our program, can successfully compete in a classroom, graduate, and find a job.
So that's very rewarding work for you, I would think.
I love it. I adore it. We're part of the student affairs at the university. Dr. Christy Motter is good to us. She trusts us, pushes us when we need to be pushed, but we're an important component of this university. And I tell folks, don't call us military friendly. We're bigger than that. We're military caring.
Is ROTC still vibrant and alive and healthy at Southern Miss?
We got a great Air Force and Army ROTC. I tell you, to your listeners, if you're looking to really meet a couple of neat people, stop by the Air Force and Army ROTCs and meet their lieutenant colonels, the guys they brought in the Air Force and the Army respectfully assigned here. They're neat. They're first class. They're motivated. They're caring. Yeah, we're doing great. Both those programs are continuing to produce some of the nation's best leaders.
So you're happy right now?
Yeah. You know what, Bob? I'm happy. I tell my wife I make the bed in the morning. I tell her, I said, I'm happy to make the bed because the option is I don't get to make the bed.
Right.
So yeah, happy. I got my children, our kids all live in Texas. Our grandboys are all in Texas, so they're going to be up here for July 4th. Got to be happy.
I know you've heard this, and I absolutely 1,000% believe this is true. But what do you think when you hear people say that Jeff Hammond is a true American hero?
I think I'm embarrassed, and I don't think that's true. Jeff Hammond's an American through and through. I mean, when they play the national anthem, I stand and sing it loud. It's just natural for me. But the hero part, that belongs to the soldiers. That belongs to the soldiers. Now I've been blessed to serve among these heroes in my 32-year career, but the real heroes today are the young privates. I mean, think about it. You're getting ready to graduate from high school, and your teacher says, "What are y'all going to do?" And I'm going to Jones. I'm going to Pearl River. I'm going to USM. I'm going to State. And there's that one or two guy in the back that don't raise their hand. They're kind of sheepish. What are you two going to do? We're going to join the Air Force or the Army. That's courage. That's moral courage that's uncommon, unique, and special. And it's something that we should all thank God when we hit our knees at night that we have young men and women that will do this for us. Because, again, show me in history where a great power has survived with a volunteer security force. These kids are all volunteers.
They're the best of the best, too, aren't they, General? I see the love in your face when you talk about them.
God made me to be a soldier. God made other soldiers to be soldiers. And I would not have traded any component of my life I got to have the honor of a lifetime to work for soldiers, to serve soldiers and their families. And I would do it all again if God wanted me to.
I get the impression you enjoyed your time with the everyday soldier more than you did the higher-ups in the military.
Oh, yeah. I'm a USM guy. I'm a commoner. I didn't go to West Point or anything special. I found my wife and I, were usually most comfortable around our people, which were just commoner soldiers. Quick story. We used to go. My wife and I used to. We'd go out on when I wanted to play on a Friday night at Fort Hood. We'd go out on a date night. And we'd come back very early while the commissary was still open, the grocery stores on the military, and we'd go in there and inspect fruit, and if it wasn't the best fruit, fresh meat, all hell would break loose, because that's what we demanded that these soldiers and their families receive. So family, the word family is with a capital F, and the word soldier is always with a capital S. And I think we should all be grateful that there's, even as we speak, you and I this moment, your listeners listen, there's kids out there that are going to raise their right hand, and they're going to raise their hand to support, defend the Constitution of the United States, the Constitution of the United States against all foreign enemies, all enemies, foreign and domestic. Most people don't know what that means. They don't know what that means, but that young soldier does.
Mm-hmm. You concerned about the country right now, General Hammond?
Yeah, confused might be a better word. Confused about the division. Confused that New York City could elect a socialist to run the largest city in America. There's a lot of things I'm concerned about, but a concern that we just sometimes we don't act like we want to be one nation under God. But I am a firm believer, though, that as time goes by, goodness will prevail. Mm-hmm. The good guys will win. I miss the days when truth was really truth. Truth is sure. Jesus Christ, but truth is also your word's your bond. And now the violence in Hattiesburg that seems to be emerging a little bit more. That's, we're better than that. We all are. Mm-hmm. We all are, top to bottom.
Right. When your day comes, and we all face that day eventually, what do you want people to remember about Jeff Hammond?
I hope, and I have a long way to go, I hope when my day comes, when God calls me, that people will be able to simply say that they saw Jesus in my heart. That's it. I got a long way to go, but if I can reach that, if people can see Jesus in my heart, then my life was well served, well led, and I was a good follower of my Creator.
Yeah. And if I cut your arm right now, I think the blood would be black and gold. Am I right about that?
Yeah. My wife and I are I'm a two-time. She's a one-time graduate of USM. All three of my kids, master's degrees from USM. Nephew USM. I got my two nieces at my house right now. They're here for orientation. They start here. They
didn't have any choice, did they?
No. Well, I'll tell you. When I left with the 4th Division to go to war at Fort Hood, my son Michael was coming to USM. He was a senior at Killeen High School in Texas. He was coming to USM, and we were excited about it because the one thing my wife and I wanted to do is give our children back to our university, and families here would be it's perfect. Well, I'm in Baghdad in the middle of a war, and one night I call home, and my wife says, "You got to talk to your son." And he's a senior at high school. I said, "Oh, what could he have done? He's a rough boy." I said, "Well," he said, "Dad, it's me, Michael." I said, "Yes." He goes, "Dad, you taught me to make decisions and live by them, right?" I said, "Yes." He goes, "I made a decision, Dad." I said, "What?" He goes, "Daddy, I'm going to Texas A&M. Here's Mama." Gave her the minute I deployed, the A&M Mafia came and stole my kid from you. Well, they took him to football games and all that stuff they do. And so my kids all went that direction because they stole the oldest.
Yeah. I had a similar experience with my dad. He was a dyed-in-the-wool Mississippi State guy. I think it took him 3 or 4 good months to get over the fact that I was not going to Mississippi State. So I can kind of relate to that. Well, General, I want to thank you very much for being on my show. I want to tell you that I know that I speak for all of us who are USM alums that we're really proud you're one of us. And you've done great things to help our country foremost and our university from back when you were the quarterback that went and beat Memphis when it was looking pretty grim back then, wasn't it?
Yeah, we were 9 losses in a row.
Yeah. Yeah. So you sort of, you turned that around for us. And you expressed to me you don't like hearing this, but General, you are an American hero. You are. You're sitting right here. I'm sitting in the presence of one.
No, thank you, Bob. But I love being an American and having been given the opportunity to lead Americans' heroes.
Well, thank you, sir, for sharing
Thank
your
you.
story with me. I really
Thank
do
you.
appreciate it.
Appreciate
I want to
it.
thank everybody for tuning in today. I know this will go down as one of our very special shows that we've ever done. And we're grateful to General Hammond for coming here today. We'll be back next week with another edition of Legends. And as always, thank you, everybody, for listening.